Welcome to Retirement GPS, navigated by Zynergy, your roadmap to a secure and confident retirement. Each week, we explore strategies, stories, and planning frameworks designed to help you navigate the complexities of life after work. From tax planning to investments, income strategies to risk management, our goal is to give you the clarity and confidence you need to make informed decisions. But retirement isn't just about the numbers. It's also about lifestyle, purpose, and peace of mind. We're here to guide you through both the financial details and the personal dimensions of this next chapter. Let's chart today's course.
Welcome back to the Retirement GPS podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Zacharczyk, certified financial planner and president of Zynergy Retirement Planning. And we are on episode 56, and today we're going to talk about a topic that I think is really valuable. We're calling it the retirement red zone. We've talked in the past about our retirement glide path, which is the 5 years leading up to retirement, and then the retirement landing, which is the 2 months before and the 2 months after retirement. But the retirement red zone is not typically a term that we use here at Zynergy Retirement Planning when we're working with people, but it's really important in the sense that it's the 1 year leading up to retirement. The reason why we don't use the retirement red zone is because that works right into our retirement landing. But I think it's important, at least for our listeners who are doing retirement planning themselves, that we zoom in and that we focus specifically on this 1 year leading up to retirement. In football, the red zone is the last 20 yards before you score, and we're really looking at the red zone here for retirement as that last 12 months, that 1 year before you're about to retire. Because really for decades, you've been saving and investing, but some of the biggest decisions that you'll make in retirement are in that year leading up to retirement, before you actually pull the trigger and you move on. So we want to talk about the things that we talk to our members about, really the 4 steps that are involved with our retirement red zone, because many people think that retirement begins the day you stop working. And in reality, of course it does. Of course, you're actually technically retired the day you wake up and don't have to go into work. But how are you going to financially manage that? How are you going to wake up, not going to work, and still be able to pay your bills? And that's what the retirement red zone is all about, making sure that is set up. Now, the retirement glide path is important because there's so many things that we can do leading up to the 5 years, but it's really in preparation. The 1 year before now is actually setting in place the things that we've begun to prepare for. So let's talk about our 4 steps within the retirement red zone that we want to make sure that we get settled in that final year before we retire. And the first one is building your retirement paycheck. Because obviously the money is going to stop from your employer, but we want to make sure that you've got money coming in so that you can pay your bills. And now you are responsible for creating that paycheck that the employer used to provide. So we have to start thinking about, where is our money going to come from? Is Social Security going to be an income source for you? If you're retiring before full retirement age, it may not. Some people want to delay until 70. We even recommend people delay until 70 at times. Doesn't mean you have to wait till 70 to retire, but you may not be able to rely on Social Security when you do first retire, and some people expect to. The other income source is potentially a pension. Do you have a pension that is from your employer that is going to provide a stream of income to you in retirement to supplement that paycheck that you had? And then, of course, the third option here is savings. So that could be cash reserves, that could be your 401k, it could be your IRA. If you're retiring before 59 and a half, as many people do, then we've got to take a look at those savings and the various options that we have and figure out what is the right balance, where do we pull from so that we can live comfortably. So we have to build that paycheck. Take a look at what your options are. Not a lot of people that we talk with have these, but you may also have an annuity, which is an income source I didn't mention, but some people do have annuities that they can annuitize and turn into a stream of income for themselves instead of a pension. So Social Security, pension, annuity, investments, cash reserves, these are all the various places that we can build our paycheck from. So we want to sit down, think about what our avenues are. We've done podcasts in the past about building that income source so that you can minimize taxes so that you can be as tax effective as possible within the tax brackets that you're working with. And that's something that we focus on really heavily at Synergy when we're building out income sources. We're not worried necessarily about minimizing taxes this year. We're more worried about minimizing taxes over your lifetime. So making sure that we've got that optimized. If we can reduce taxes in the first couple of years of retirement before you're on Medicare, before you're on Social Security, allows us to actually do some Roth conversions in those years and get money to become tax-free going forward. So those are the types of things that we'll look at when we're building out a retirement paycheck. Step number 2 is protect against your biggest risks. And there are a few here in retirement that we want to manage against. First one is, of course, health insurance. So your insurances in general, we're not going to spend a lot of time focusing on things like life insurance or disability or property and casualty. Life and disability is, as you probably have heard from us in the past, is just something that you most likely won't have in retirement. You tend to not need. It doesn't mean everybody doesn't need them, but disability is for workers. And life insurance typically protects your dependents, and by then you really don't have dependents, and you tend to have enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your lives if you do, which is why you're retiring. So those are not necessary in most cases. Property and casualty is just a little bit bigger than the scope of this podcast, but we do want to talk about your health insurance and potentially long-term care insurance. So for health insurance, how are you going to be managing your health insurance in retirement? If you're retiring before 65, you need a health insurance policy that is not Medicare. Medicare does not start until 65. And even if you are 65, but your spouse is younger than 65, you'll have to get private insurance to cover your spouse. Some people are fortunate. They are government employees or employees for big companies that have health insurance for the rest of their lives, all through retirement. It's pretty rare, but we still see it from time to time, especially for workers that have worked at the same company or for the government for a good long time. And that's really helpful, of course, because once Medicare does kick in, that becomes your supplement plan. And that's really beneficial. If you're 65 or older, obviously Medicare will be your health insurance coverage. We did a separate podcast on that, but you've got your A plan, your B, your C, and your D. We're typically focused on A, B, and D. A is emergency care, B is your doctor care, and D is your drug plan. So those are the programs that we're going to mostly be focused on. In addition, you're going to need a supplemental plan, so you can talk to a Medicare professional about a supplemental plan. All in for 2026, we're finding it's costing most people, unless you're hit by IRMAs. IRMAs are the increase in monthly premiums, but those plans are typically costing people around $400 per person per month. That could be $450, $420. Just depends on which supplemental plan you go with and the drug plan that you end up with. But health insurance is something that we need to make sure that we get in place. We need to have a plan for it before that retirement date hits, because we don't want to be stuck without it, especially at the age that we tend to retire. Long-term care insurance, if you haven't made a decision on long-term care insurance by that point, it could be too late. It really depends. Once you hit your early 60s, long-term care insurance gets extremely expensive, almost intolerably, just something that we tell people not to get, but we think long and hard about paying the premiums. If you're a married couple paying $10,000 a year for an insurance policy, we do talk about it. Does it make sense to self-insure at that point? But long-term care insurance is definitely something that should be explored, because if you haven't already gotten it, we need to get it now if we're planning to get it. So now is the time. The other risks that we need to look at are debt. So do we still have debt? Obviously, if we have credit card debt, if we have revolving consumer debt, get rid of it. This is the time to get rid of it. I don't care if you have to pull from a 401k or an IRA. Yes, if you have $100,000 in credit card debt, we probably have a bigger problem. We may even want to talk about not retiring it and getting that cleaned up. We don't want to pull $100,000 from a 401k all at once to pay it off. But we don't see that often, to be honest with you. That's not typically a problem that we see. But mortgage is, and especially in today's world, 10 years ago, people were coming to us and saying, hey, I've got a $100,000 mortgage left. Should I pay it off, or should I keep the money invested? And we tended to just say, let's get the mortgage paid off. Now, a lot of people that we work with are locked in at 2.5%, 3%, and on their mortgage, they might have $50,000 or $100,000 left, but their savings account is getting them 3.5%. So we tell them now is probably not the best time to prepay and pay off your mortgage. But it's an analysis that we always want to do. Do we want to pay off the mortgage early at retirement and have no debt going into retirement, which is what we like to see, but it isn't always mathematically the best way to move forward. We'll look at both of those options and make a decision, but you need to decide that for yourself before you retire. Making sure that your emergency fund is well funded. right? Your emergency fund should have enough cash in it to be comfortable. We like to have anywhere from 6 to 12 months of emergency reserve in savings, and it depends on a lot of variables. The biggest variable is how much guaranteed income do you have coming in? If you're on Social Security, you have a pension, and that covers pretty much all of your major required expenses, such as food and housing and your monthly bills, electric, utilities, that sort of thing, then we say we probably don't need as big emergency reserve. Probably 6 months is sufficient. And if you have less, if you're drawing from the portfolio entirely, then we almost certainly will say now is the time to have a little bit of a bigger emergency reserve. It also comes down to a comfort level. What will allow you to sleep well at night? Remember, everything that we keep in emergency reserve is probably going to underperform your savings account during your retirement. So if you're getting 3.5 in your savings account and you're averaging anywhere from 6 to 9% in your portfolio, then you're underperforming, and that's opportunity cost that we don't want to take too much in opportunity cost, but we got to make sure we sleep well. It's sleeping well versus eating well, which is what we like to say here at Synergy. How much money are you willing to give up in order to be comfortable? And there's a balance there. So 6 to 12 months is typically that balance. And then your investment asset allocation. If you are aggressive, if you've been aggressive, if you have tech stocks, if you have mostly S&P 500 because you say, you know what, that's what's doing well, and that's what I want to have in my portfolio. It sounds to me like most likely you're not working with a professional to help you with that, but now is the time. You have got to move. You've been right for a long period of time, and that's great, but that doesn't mean you'll be right forever. A lot of people that retired in 1998, 1999 were very disappointed if they had a 90 or 100% of their assets in the S&P 500 or in technology stocks, which had done well for about 10 years up to that point. So we want to make sure we don't get ourselves caught in that situation. You don't want to be down 50 or 60 or 70% if there is a systematic correction in the market. And that's what we want to avoid, is that decade-long correction. A diversified portfolio from 2000 to 2010 actually did okay. It was up about 5 to 6% over that period of time. The S&P 500 did nothing. It basically broke even. So having a diversified portfolio that is a little bit more conservative, can reduce volatility, and that we can rebalance during a volatile period is exactly what we need in retirement. And if you don't have that, you're setting yourself up for potential problems. I like to say we don't go into retirement and gamble. If you're invested 100% in equities or 90% in equities, you're gambling. You're basically saying, I'm putting it on black, and I think black's going to come up, and that's going to be my retirement. I don't think many people would want to retire thinking about it that way, but that's exactly what they do. So that's step number 2. Let's move on to step number 3, which is don't leave money behind. So now, as you're preparing to leave for retirement, I think it's important that you take a look at what the next year looks like at your job and talk to HR about a few things, specifically what happens with unused vacation time. If I don't use all my vacation time and I've accumulated vacation time, is it paid out in cash? Is it distributed? Should I take it at the very end? Can I take it? Can I take 2 months before I retire if I have 2 months of vacation time? What do I do with that unused vacation time? And plan and make sure that you're using it. Stock options or restricted stock, equity compensation. What happens to that when I retire? Some people work for privately held companies and they have stock that has to be bought back. Some people work for public companies and they want to know, I have various tranches that are paid out over time. So how do I get that? And what happens if I leave right before a tranche is paid out? That should be really important in determining your retirement date. Pension elections. If you do have a pension, what are the elections that I'm going to take? Am I going to take 100% single life annuity, or am I going to do a 50% married filing jointly? We need to take a look at those various options and say, what's the right option for me and to protect myself and my spouse? Life insurance continuation, and long-term care as well. This comes into play for both of these coverages. If you have long-term care through work, if you have life insurance through work, a lot of times you can carry that over with you and then start paying it privately. And that may make sense, especially with the long-term care option. So take a look at what those are and what's available to you. Understanding your 401k rollover. This is a conflict of interest for us in a lot of cases, and we tell people that, but we do recommend rolling over a 401k when you leave your job to your IRA. It gives you a lot of flexibility for how you invest it, so take a look at what you're going to do with that. And of course, the option is always that you can do it, but just make sure that you've got that all set up so that you're ready to go. And then, of course, your Social Security timing, knowing when your Social Security is going to be paid. We talked about that in step 1, but this is something that should be figured out so that you're not leaving money on the table, that you really have a good plan for your Social Security. And then step 4, our final step here, is to prepare emotionally for the transition. And I know this is a financial podcast about retirement planning, but it is retirement. And retirement and even financials are as much emotional as they are logical. In fact, I would go on record and say they can be more emotional at times than they are logical. That's why it's really important. And this is the conversation that almost nobody has. So, what are you retiring to? Start spending some time thinking about it. Sketch it out. What does your perfect day look like? What does your perfect week look like? Maybe you're a morning person. I'm going to wake up at 6:30 in the morning and I'm going to sit and have a quiet cup of coffee and read the newspaper for an hour. Then I'm going to go out and take the dog for a walk and walk 2 miles and get my exercise in. Then I'm going to come back and I want to work in my garden. And then I'm going to read and lay out exactly what your perfect day and then your perfect week is going to look like. If we do that, it doesn't mean you're going to always live your perfect day and your perfect week, but it gives you an idea of what your thoughts are at this moment about what you want your retirement to be. What relationships do you want to work on enhancing and improving? Maybe you haven't had time for friends because you've been working so much. Maybe you haven't had time for children and grandchildren because of all the things that you've been responsible for, and you're going to have that time. Remember, just because you've got the time now doesn't mean those friends who may still be working or children or grandchildren have the time for you, but it gives you the opportunity to schedule more things and give them more time, specifically with your spouse if they're also retired. Think about your hobbies that you want to spend time doing. What identity do you want to see yourself as? Do you want to be a philanthropistic giver and spend time doing things? Or do you want to be a homebody and putz around in the garden and in your yard when the weather's nice? So think about, who do you want to be in retirement? What travel do you want to do? Put together your bucket list and start planning out trips, because if travel is a priority of yours, that's what retirement is about. It's about getting out there and doing and experiencing things. Coming up with this list of what is my perfect day? What is my perfect week? What are the things that I then want to do? Who's the person that I want to be in retirement will help make that transition smoother. A lot of people go into retirement and just say, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll figure it out. That's a good problem to have, because I'm burnt out. I don't like my job. And they're really retiring from something. And that's not what we want to see people do. We want to see people retire to something. So planning in advance what I'm going to spend my time doing is really helpful. And think about specifically the first 3 months of your retirement. Those are what we call the honeymoon period. What do I want my first 3 months to be about? How do I want to spend my time? And you might say, you know what, I don't want to have to schedule a lot because I've always been so scheduled. I've always been so busy. I really just want some space. I want some space to think and breathe and say, great. Then I say, that's fantastic. Create a list of the things that will give you time and space to think and breathe. Maybe it's walking in the park. Maybe it's doing yoga. Maybe it's getting massages from time to time. What are the things that are going to give you the space to think and breathe? Maybe it's waking up and having that cup of coffee and reading the paper, right? Maybe that's the space that you need. When you think about how am I going to get that space, you can start to build that into your first 3 months of your life and say, you know what, 5 days a week, I really want to spend time walking in the park because that's going to be my space. And it doesn't mean you have to schedule it, because again, the goal here is not to schedule it, but it just is in the back of your mind as, how do I want to spend my time? You don't want to be caught up watching Wheel of Fortune all day and not really having that purpose that we're moving into retirement with. And then what I'm going to suggest is something that's a little bit radical and not something that most people do, but something we like to tell people to do the year before retirement. Do a practice retirement if you have time. A lot of people will say, I have 2 months vacation, which I won't be able to use, so I'll leave 2 months early. And what we suggest is you can leave a month early or something, that's fine, but take a month off. Take 1 full month off in the year before you're going to leave and do a practice retirement and just feel what it's like. Feel what it's like to spend the day doing almost nothing or doing things that you never thought that you would do and having space in the day to think and breathe and learn and grow. And see how that feels, because you may learn about some things that you want to spend time doing or things you definitely don't want to spend time doing because you just found them boring. A lot of people say, oh, I'm just going to play golf every day. And then they go out and play golf 5 days in a row and they're like, you know what? Like, that was a little bit boring. Like, it was fun for the first day or two, but I need something else. Practice retirement gives you a really great opportunity to find out what you like to do, but more importantly, what you don't like to do. So really, what the key takeaways here are the 4 steps to building your retirement red zone year. Make sure, number 1, that you're building your retirement paycheck. Number 2, protect against your biggest risks. So your health insurance, your long-term care insurance, pay off any debt, your emergency reserves should be plumped up by now. and your asset allocation, get that lined up in the right way, the way it's supposed to be done. Don't leave any money behind. So make sure you're taking advantage of the opportunities available to you, whether it be unpaid vacation time or planning out a Social Security strategy, collecting those equity compensation grants, making sure all of those I's are dotted and those T's are crossed. And then lastly, preparing emotionally. What are you retiring to? Develop a plan and practice that plan if you have the ability to, and you will be a much happier retiree when the time comes. Folks, that's it for today's podcast, our Retirement Red Zone. If you want to learn a little bit more about our Retirement Red Zone, feel free to go to our website. We've got to have a blog post on this topic at www.zenergyretirement.com. Make sure that if you're not yet subscribed, make sure you're subscribing to our podcast so you're getting this great content, especially if you're on the verge of retirement. You never want to miss a podcast of this information, which is going to be really helpful putting together your plan. So subscribe, like our podcast, share it with your friends who also may be retiring. And listen, if you need help because this is something that you feel like you're just not comfortable doing on your own, give our office a call at Zenergy Retirement Planning here in Red Bank, and we'll be happy to sit down and talk with you. But until next Tuesday, when we're back for our next episode, keep learning and keep planning.
Thank you for listening to Retirement GPS, navigated by Zenergy. To explore today's topic further, visit our blog Mile Markers at zenergyretirement.com/blog, where we offer detailed strategies, examples, and downloadable tools to support your retirement journey. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Zenergy Retirement Planning for weekly insights, checklists, and planning reminders. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with someone planning for their future. Until next time, keep navigating toward a confident retirement. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as investment, legal, or tax advice. Listeners should consult their own financial, tax, and legal advisors before making any decisions. Zenergy Retirement Planning is a registered investment advisor located in Red Bank, New Jersey.